Sir, can you mute your mic? Excuse me, sir. Mr. Sadiq,
Yeah.
can you please mute your mic? Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Good morning, Tanya, Jessica.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, Tanya. That's nice to have you here. As a resource person, we are thankful, grateful. Just 1 or 2 minutes, we shall wait, and then we'll start with the agenda of the day. Check whether it is audible. Check whether the voice is audible. Banu, kindly check whether Tanya's voice is audible.
Should I make an attempt to speak?
Yes,
check
sir.
your volume. Just
it's audible. It's audible, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Good. May God lead.
Sure.
Shall we start with the program? Banu?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. A very good morning, a warm morning to everyone gathered here on this online platform. Today is a special day. We are all gathered here to know more about NEP, National Education Policy. Yes, so I call upon our principal, Mrs. Malarvili, to introduce the gathering, address the gathering with her speech. Ma'am, the platform is yours.
Yes, good morning, dear parents, the resource person on the dais, and all my teachers, and I could find few students also have participated. Today is a much anticipated day because not only the teachers, the parents also need to know about the new education policy, so that once we are aware of the knowledge about what the new education policy and why we needed it, definitely without the parent support we can't go further. So once we know about these policies, as I'm expecting the parents' support, it may go on. That's my belief. So we should know what is the main aim of the National Education Policy 2020, and why we need it, the reason for it, and how NEP will help our students, and how we have to change our attitude from what we had been doing earlier in receiving the knowledge, and to this 21st century, how our attitude should change looking forward with the education thing, and towards a competency based education and so on. And what are the advantages of this new education policy? I feel this is the need of the hour, and as head, I feel that it's my responsibility even to educate all my parents, as we are educating the teachers with a new idea about education. This is what the CBSE board also wanted. So this is the day for that. So 100 participants are here, and rest of the parents will be joining using the YouTube link that we have posted. And make use of the time and the day. May God lead. And I hand over the session to Banu to introduce the dignitaries, introduce the resource person, to carry on with the welcome speech, and give the platform to the resource persons who are very valuable. And we have Tanya and we have Sunita Gladson with us. Wonderful people. They are much close to my heart. Long-time friends, Sunita and her daughter, Tanya. So we'll be waiting for them to speak, to hear. So Banu, please take up the stage.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, as ma'am told, NEP is into our education. The stream is going to change. New reforms are going to be built. NEP National Education Policy as such is launched in this year, which aims at many developmental reforms in education. NEP is built on the foundational pillar of access, equity, quality, affordability, and accountability. The NEP recommends many transformational ideas of vocational education, both in schools and college level. The new educational policy ensures universal access to higher quality education in a paced manner. Special attention and priority will be given to the economically weaker sections of the society. The policy promotes active pedagogical development of core capacities, life skills, including 21st century skills, experiential learning in all stages, holistic progress cards, promoting critical and higher order thinking, introducing vocational education, and give an insight to the special NEP 2020 program a glance. We have two eminent great personalities which us to give a special speech to our parents of TRIS about NEP 2020. Now I call upon Mrs. Infan Karthika to give the welcome address. Well, Mrs. Infan Karthika, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Mrs. Banu. A pleasant good morning, distinguished delegates, parents, teachers, participants, and all my dear students. Our country has stepped into the National Educational Policy 2020, which outlines the vision of India's new educational system. Here comes a prestigious chief guest who's gonna be an eye-opener of National Educational Policy 2020. It's a glorious moment to extend my warm wishes on behalf of the Rajas International School, Nagarkoil. I want to convey my heartfelt greetings to our distinguished chief guest, Mrs. Sunita Gladson, for accepting this invitation and presiding over the seminar on NEP. She worked as an English and French instructor in Dhirubhai Ambani International School, and she has ample of experience all over our country. We welcome you, dear ma'am. Next, it gives me immense warmth and a great pleasure to praise and welcome Miss Tanya Jessica Gladson, who is a legislative assistant for the Members of Parliament Fellowships. We welcome you, dear Miss Tanya, ma'am. It's my tremendous contentment to welcome our beloved principal, Mrs. Malavali, who has arranged this wonderful opportunity to gain knowledge on NEP. Welcome you, dear ma'am.
Thank you.
To the world, our parents may be simply a person, but for us, they may be the world. This sentence is enough to give an immense to recognize their respect our parents. This immense pleasure on behalf of our school, we welcome our dear parents. In the end, I would like to welcome our beloved coordinators, teachers, staffs, and students and managing officials who are an integral part of this institution. Before we begin this seminar, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all of you sincerely committed in this event to make it success. Once again, I welcome you all for this grateful day. Have a nice day. Thank you, Ms. Banu, for giving this wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Infant Kartika. Now, I call upon Miss Tanya, the guest of honor of today, to introduce the gathering about NEP. Yes, the online platform is yours, Miss Tanya. Yes, you can take up the session. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Very glad to be here. I thank Rajas International School for welcoming me. And I'd request Ms. Banu to also share the PPT if possible.
Yes, I'll do. Yes, I'll do.
So before we begin, I'd just like to say that if anyone has any questions, you're free to reach out to me, but I'd request you to please keep them for the end of the session. And secondly, I'd request you to also keep your mics muted so that I'm not interrupted in between. Yeah, we can take it away once the PPT has been shared.
Mrs. Srividya is sharing. Tanya.
Okay. So today we've divided the session such that I will be handling policy perspectives on the NEP, and Mrs. Gladson will be handling the teaching portion and how it's actually going to be implemented at the level of Rajas International School. What I will be covering today is what the NEP is and why exactly we need it as a policy, and also what the NEP actually sets out to do. This particular quote is a pretty good summation of the entire policy as a whole, where the NEP is actually looking to change the education system in India completely to be more oriented towards driving, inquiry, exploration, creativity, emphasis on learning rather than mugging up, things like that. So if you could move to the next slide, please. So the first portion that we will be covering is why we need the NEP, right? So if we look at the Indian education system currently, the way it's working is children are in school, but they're not learning. In the sense that your child might be opening their books and studying maths, chemistry, physics, etc., but they're not actually able to use and apply the concepts that they are learning in school. And there's a variety of factors that comes into play when we talk about why children are not learning in school, and one of the two main reasons are that the curriculum is outdated. It's not been updated for many years. So a lot of the concepts that we're learning today are not relevant to this global scenario that we live in. And assessment systems are also outdated. So what I mean by assessment systems being outdated is that learning is not gauged by how well you have understood the concept and applied it, but by how well you're able to rote learn the particular concept. So if you look at the evolution of examination from the 19th century, it has been targeted towards eliminating students. So one very simple example is entrance exams, right? So if you have an entrance exam like NEET, where you have 1 lakh students who have written the exam and got the cutoff mark, the difference between the cutoff of the last student who got into a medical college and the first student who did not get in will be 0.001. And that's a very pertinent indicator as to how exams are used to uh, sort of recruit the children who can uh, uh, enter colleges and eliminate the rest. And this is it's got a variety of factors going into it, such as competition, lack of enough seats, etc. But in an ideal world, you wouldn't want that your child loses out on a medical seat or an engineering seat because there aren't enough places in the colleges, right? And the NEP as a policy seeks to change this evaluating system. Um, I think the PPT has gone away again, but maybe it would be more convenient for me to share it. Hold on. So, okay. So when we talk about learning, the NEP, one of the major, uh, you know, points that the NEP stresses on is quality over what rote learning is currently taking place. So what I mean when I say quality is the learning outcomes of children, how much children are learning, how they're able to utilize this particular data that they're absorbing in schools. And to talk about learning outcomes, I'm going to use the definition given by the World Bank, which is learning poverty, where learning poverty is the ability of a child to read and understand a text by the age of 10. So the World Bank says that in India, only about 55% of children are able to read and comprehend a simple text, whether it is a short story or it's just a paragraph outlining instructions to do a particular task, such as the back of an ORS packet. And they say that in India, a lot of children are not able to do this. And more than that, in India, children are not able to carry on learning because they are not able to read and comprehend at lower standards. Uh, if we go to something called the School Education Quality Index by the NITI Aayog, which measures what learning outcomes for students are like across standards, up till standards 8 across India. These are some of the data points that have come out. So if you look here, what the SEQI did is it compared the scores of maths and language for third, fifth, and eighth standard. And I'd like to just point out that if you look at countries such as, if you look at states such as Tamil Nadu, in class 3, children are able to score 62 marks in language and mathematics out of 100. Now, if you go to class 5, if you look at Tamil Nadu again, children's scores drop to 58 in languages and 49 in mathematics over a period of 2 years, which means that the ability to learn and apply language and mathematics between third standard and fifth standard has reduced, right? And then if we go to eighth standard, again, if you look at Tamil Nadu, there's been a drastic drop in the marks that children have gotten again, both in language and in mathematics. So it's a very obvious conclusion that you would come to, right? When children are not able to learn their basics and they're not able to have a strong foundation, then they're not able to be, they're not going to be able to learn more complex concepts and utilize them over different periods. Again, coming to the National Achievement Survey of 2017, which was conducted for classes 3, 4, and 7, some of the results that came out were that 54% of students across the country and across classes from first standard to 12th standard were unable to comprehend and apply concepts concretely for concepts concretely. And this is almost 54%, which means that half your population of students is not learning properly and they're not able to actually utilize the skills that they're supposed to be learning in real life. And when we talk about the NEP and why it actually came out in 2020, something that should be noted is India's performance in something called the Program for International Student Assessment in 2009. So the Program for International Student Assessment is an international test that gauges the learning outcomes of students across the globe. And it looks at children up to the age of 15, if I'm not wrong. And what happened in 2009 when India participated is that our test scores were abysmal. And out of 73 countries, we were ranked 72, which indicated that the quality of learning that is going on in India is very poor, and students are not actually learning, they're just mugging up concepts. And once again, I think there's a small typo, I apologize for that. In 2019, ASAR, which is an organization run by Pratham, which does the annual State of Education report, had released a report called Beyond Basics, where they looked at how children beyond 8th standard were performing in applying concepts that they had learned in school in real life. And they found that children were not able to, 25% of children were not able to actually read and comprehend a text in their mother tongue. Almost 40 to 50% of students were not able to read and comprehend um, con- read and comprehend concepts in English and apply them. Children were unable to do basic things like read time, right? 86% of children could tell time, but if you wanted them to give you the time in hours and minutes, they were unable to do it. They were unable to look at the back of an ORS packet, read the instructions in English, and then follow the instructions on how to make the ORS packet and administer it. And this is a very clear indication of how skills in school, content and curriculum in school has not translated into real life skills and learning. And coming to private schools, the misconception is that private schools have much better learning outcomes than public schools and government aided schools. But that's not the fact, because the system is such that uh, private schools also have to administer the same curriculum. Private schools also have to cater to the same assessment systems. So whether you're in a government CBSE school or you're in a private CBSE school, you're learning the same substance. And whether you're in a government CBSE school or a private CBSE school, you have to write the same 10th board exam and 12th board exam. So in that particular instance, the quality of learning outcomes for children are pretty much the same for private schools and government schools. The only difference is that teachers, if given better input, support systems from parents, students engage in the class, then learning outcomes are marginally better than in government and aided schools. Um, then, so now we come to the NEP itself. What the NEP has done is it's tried to overhaul the entire education system. You know, it says this is not working for us. The material that we're teaching our students is not working for us. The way we're assessing them is not working for us. So let's change it. And these are some of the salient points that I thought would be relevant to students in Rajas International School. And so I've picked them up. But there are a lot more features in the NEP. For instance, there's support for gifted students that I've not mentioned here. There's support for socioeconomically disadvantaged groups that I've not mentioned here. And I would also suggest that parents who are interested go through the entire NEP and look up studies such as ASAR. It comes out every year, Annual State of Education report. And you'll really be able to understand where the shortcomings are in learning in India and how the NEP has gone about addressing them. So coming to the features, right now how education in India works is that we have a 10+2 system, first standard to 10th standard, and then you have 2 years in 11th and 12th, after which you exit school and go to higher education. But now it's being replaced by a 5+3+3+4 curricular structure. So they've divided it. They've divided these age groups based on their age, cognitive ability, the ability to understand and learn concepts. How exactly the brain functions at those particular years, so that they can better utilize those cognitive abilities to maximize the kind of learning that goes on. And as you can see, the 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 system has the corresponding age groups also, 3 to 8, 8 to 11, 11 to 4, and 14 to 8. And I'll go into a little more detail about this particular aspect of the NEP in the next slide. And then the next major feature of the NEP is an emphasis on foundation literacy and numeracy. So what this particular point is aiming to do is the NEP is CIO. If children in the 3rd standard had their language and math skills in place in the 3rd standard itself, it would have been easier for them to pick up concepts in the 4th and 5th standard, and they would have actually learned well, and their exam performance would have been better in the 5th standard. So their marks would not have dropped as drastically as they did in that particular study. So this is a very important topic that the NEP is focusing on, because if you don't have a foundational literacy and numeracy in place, you're not going to be able to absorb a lot of concepts going forward. And then the counterpart to foundational literacy and numeracy is again how learning is going to change in that there's going to be more emphasis on experiential learning, engaging with the content. You're not going to be expected to mug up everything and, just read your textbooks and vomit it in the paper. Again, I'll highlight a little more about that in the next slide. Then the third particular feature that they're going to be looking at is there's no separation between disciplines. So it's not going to be that students who take science cannot do humanities subjects, students who take humanities cannot do commerce subject, etc. So say for instance, in 10 years, you might have a child in the 10th standard who wants to do something like data science. So then they would be able to take mathematics, statistics, economics, maybe coding, and they would be able to cater their they would be able to tailor their learning curriculum to cater to the sort of ambitions that they have for themselves later on in life. And then again, there's also not going to be a division between curricular and extracurricular. For instance, right now, arts and sports are considered extracurriculars, but that's not going to be the case moving forward. And vocation and academics is also considered to be very different. Vocation is seen as something as a lesser stream to pursue than an academic stream. But the NEP has shifted the focus to give children the option of taking up vocational education, so that they have more options going forward. I'm sorry, I think someone has unmuted themselves. I request you to mute yourself again, please. And then another feature is that teaching to at least grade 5 is going to be in the mother tongue and regional language, so that children's foundational literacy and numeracy is stronger, because research has shown that if you learn in your mother tongue or the regional language of the place that you're staying in, it's easier for children to pick up concepts, and it's much more difficult for them to pick up concepts in English, because it's not spoken that much at home, and they're not familiar with that language. And again, I'll stress a little more about upon this on the next slide. And like I was saying, you cannot have a overhaul in the kind of learning that takes place if you don't have an overhaul in the kind of assessments that take place. So assessment reforms, a 360-degree holistic progress cards, and then how children are going to be tracked on the kind of learning outcomes they've had, etc. And then finally, the NEP seeks to make children global citizens. So they want to make sure that children who study in India don't face problems with when it comes to skills, when it comes to critical thinking, when it comes to maybe the sort of education that's required if you need to immigrate. I'm sorry, emigrate. And so they've really taken a very global perspective on how they want education to change in the country. And this is the final slide and on what exactly the NEP is setting out to achieve and how it plans to do it. And as I was saying, if you can look at the diagram on the right side, which has been taken directly from the NEP document itself. It's illustrating on the 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 system that I was talking about. With the green block, which is from ages 3 to 8, is going to cover classes 1 and 2 in the foundational stage. So here your literacy, numeracy, your very basic skills that you'd require as a foundation to make sure that you're able to comprehend and go ahead with subjects in the later stages. And then class 3 to 5, which is the preparatory stage, where children are introduced to subjects such as math, English, a very basic understanding of science. Then in middle school, where children are encouraged to actually start exploring what these subjects are all about. So right now, I believe in sixth standard, the science stream splits into chemistry, physics, and biology, which will also which encourages children to delve a little deeper into the sort of subject matter that there is in this in these particular streams, which will continue to be encouraged in the NEP. And then in the secondary stage, which is 9 to 12, children can take up subjects that they want. They can, like I said, tailor their learning to cater to their life ambitions, take a much deeper view on the kind of subjects that they're going to be studying, etc. Then there's from standard 6 to 8, children are encouraged to do no bag days, where they're encouraged to take up internships, vocational training in carpentry, metallurgy, very intricate handwork. Hand working professions where you do things, and which I think is a very exceptional thing, because children no longer have to stick to just being an engineer and doctor. They can actually become highly skilled in something like carpentry or woodworking, which is a very niche sector to be working in a lot of countries. So that is talking about the new system that's going to be in place. And now coming to the actual curriculum, when we talk about learning material and teaching, so how it's going to be, children are going to be encouraged to not rote learn anymore, because assessments are changing. The way children are taught also changes. It will focus more on key concepts, ideas, application, problem solving. So it's a very dynamic way to be learning. There's a lot of there's activities, there's art oriented and sport oriented learning. There's learning taking place in different languages. So art and sport oriented learning is where arts, actual art, drawing, things like that is used to teach concepts to children. Sports is where physical activity is used to teach children. So the curriculum is really overhauling the kind of teaching that's going to be happening, and also the kind of curriculum that's going to be taking place. Excuse me. There's a focus on things like coding. There's a focus on maths. Language skills are changing, because now there's a 3-language system in place, where one is the local language or your mother tongue. one is another Indian language, and the third is English or any other international language that you want. And like I said, up till fifth, and maybe even carrying over to eighth standard, children are going to be taught in their mother tongue, which would make learning a lot easier for them, but also sort of inculcate an appreciation for their mother tongue and the Indian language system and Indian culture and ethos, as the NEP puts it, in children. Um, and then again, when reorientation towards hands-on learning, so there will be a lot of activities. Children would be encouraged to learn by themselves, explore topics. So maybe today children are taught in history, about the independence struggle, but that doesn't mean that children will have to stick to what's given in the textbook. Children can go out, read their own books, maybe surf the web for some videos, and then assessment will also be changed such that if children have uh, you know uh, content outside of what the textbook is going to be teaching them, then they will be assessed on that as well. And again, coming to choose own subjects and design academic course, children will give be preference will be given to how much children will enjoy the kind of subjects that you're learning. Children will no longer be forced to take, maybe someone just enjoys biology and chemistry, they don't enjoy physics, so they're not going to be restricted to taking up science and learning biology, chemistry and physics. Instead, they can take up biology and chemistry and maybe history and geography, even to the 12th standard. And when it comes to assessments in the 12th standard also, they're going to change. So there's going to be greater flexibility. Board exams are not going to be as high stakes, so it's not going to be that if you fail the board exams you can never go to college. Children will be given multiple attempts to take the board exams. It will be based more on what they learn, the concepts that they've learned rather than what they've learned. So they won't be mugging it up and vomiting it out on the paper. They'll actually be taking concepts and applying them to real world situations. And then there's also a lot of emphasis on evidence-based thinking, creativity, problem solving, digital literacy, coding, and these are all very important skills that today's children lack, especially when it comes to a very international scenario, because we right now do not measure up to the kind of international standard that there is for reasoning and thinking. And if we are going to be a skilled workforce, we're going to want to be employable around the globe. We want to have the most relevant sort of knowledge and know-how and technical skills. Then we need to have these sort of foundational skills, inculcated in us from a very young age. And finally, again, a stress on how testing will shift from rote memorization and just asking you to take whatever you've learned, sum it up in a few points and write it down. It's going to be shifting to how you're going to apply those concepts in the real world, or what you learned, and what real world applications there are for that sort of concept. And competency based testing, rather how well you've actually understood the concept, rather than how well you're able to by heart the concept and put it down on paper. So this is sort of the conclusion on the NEP, and I think Mrs. Gladstone can take over from me now, and then later on, if there are any questions, we can go to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you. That was an excellent excellent report on NEP. You explained the features of NEP, the statistical data, and why we need the NEP. That was an excellent session. Thank you. And you made our parents clear about the structure of NEP. Yes, of course, Ms. Sania. The session was a need of an hour. Thank you for opening the eyes of the parents of our school about NEP. Now, I call upon Mrs. Sunita Gladstone to take up the session to give her ideas how to implement NEP. Yes, the platform is yours, Mrs. Sunita Gladstone.
I think there's some technical issues. Just a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, yes.
Yes.
Good.
So Miss Gladstone talked about the policy and how it is on paper. So, what I'm going to talk about is what actually happens inside the classroom. And I know that that's what many of the parents have been waiting. So, the teachers have been talking so much about NEP, NEP, NEP. Children seem to be doing something that, we are not able, as parents, we are not able to guide them. We actually don't know what we should be doing, or what is the kind of input we should be giving our children. Teachers seem to be, they just give all the work to the children and children are expected to do it. Teachers don't seem to be giving any input, but what actually is happening inside the classroom, let's discover that together. So before I talk, let me just put on the screen a few of the slides that I have made. So can my slide be seen? Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
No?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So this is what I'm going to talk about: national education policy translated into the classroom for learners and learning facilitators. So if you see, I haven't used the most common word that we use in school, student and teacher, because the student is a learner and the teacher facilitates learning. It is not the job of the teacher anymore to give the input to the children. The teacher throws the idea at the children. It is the children who are going to learn. It is the children who are going to come up with the answers, and therefore they are called learners. So before I start what is happening inside the classroom, let me just talk about the teacher's secret. So this is the teacher's secret. This is uh, the picture that all teachers have in their mind when they write a lesson plan, when they plan their lessons, when they talk about what they are going to do inside the classroom. I know that for many parents, it may be a little impossible to believe that teachers actually plan their lessons, but we do. We plan each and every lesson, even if it is a 40-minute lesson, it is planned. And this is what it is. So what is Bloom's taxonomy? Bloom's taxonomy is just a set of verbs. It is a set of verbs which is the basis of the teaching methodology that happens inside the classroom. So what basically happens is, he was a educational psychologist who believed that the educational process promotes behavioral goals. So that is why we always hear people saying that, somebody probably behaves better or has a better perspective because he's educated. So he also believed that a relationship between a teacher and a student is a mentoring process. And the feedback given by the teacher is not meant to show the child how much he has not learned. It is meant to show the child how he can improve his performance and produce better quality work. So this, so when you look at this, you can see that there are 6 steps: remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. So if you look at remember, it says recall facts and basic concepts. And unfortunately, according to the way we are studying right now and the way we are writing our grade 12 right now, we are at the bottom of this triangle. We only remember. We neither understand, we don't know how to apply and analyze, and we certainly find it very difficult to evaluate and create. And that is a very sad state of affairs for a country as big as India. So we are, in many terms, the youngest nation in the world. More than about 52% of our population is below the age of 40. That means there are that many people who are capable of doing that many more professions. And unfortunately, the only thing we can do is remember. When your daily life, you are supposed to be evaluating and creating. So if parents would like to further learn about what is happening in the Bloom's taxonomy, you're welcome to take a screenshot of this picture which is on the slide right now, and you can look at it in depth at home and probably understand where your child has to reach by the time your child is in the 3 plus 4 plus in that little formula, the new formula that they have. So can I move on to the next slide? Hello, can I be heard?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes.
Can I move on to the next slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So the Institutional Review Board of the United States of America conducted a study of the academic challenges that are faced by Indian students who are studying abroad. So they chose 6 children from different from each stream that they had come to study across universities in America, and this were their findings. Critical thinking. So many of the children felt that they were so used to memorizing and rote learning that they found it very difficult to actually apply their learning and put it down on paper. Second was academic integrity. So when children study in the bigger universities and in the more famous or the more acknowledged universities that are, supposed to be the standards of education around the world, Indian children felt that they are only used to learning from textbooks. And therefore, they have to be very careful when they write their assignments because they are very easily accused of plagiarism. So many universities and colleges in India have now got their own softwares which test how much has been copied from the internet. And even in a classroom, it's very easy to do that. You just have to take one sentence from the child's project and put it, and Google Baba will vomit out to you which sites that came from. And unfortunately, most often it is from Wikipedia. And that is not learning because there is no analysis, there is no evaluation, and there is no creation. Second, practical approach. The third is the practical approach. These students thought that they kind of felt that they found it very hard to have a practical approach to their studies because they were only used to looking at things theoretically. They were only used to writing definitions and putting the principles on paper, but they didn't know how to practice that in real life. So if you'll give me a chance to give you a very small example, I'll just go back to the main screen, and then I'll tell you about what is the point I'm trying to make. So here I have before me uh, a cake tin. So I'm sure there are many mothers here who make cake. Now I have this cake tin. I want to make a cake that only fits in this tin. Okay? How do I find out how much cake batter should I pour in this tin? Can any mother tell me this? The answer to this is something we have all learned in grade 6. Can anybody tell me? Does anyone remember in grade 6 we learned length into breadth, length into breadth into height. If we multiply that, we can find out how much cake batter we need to put inside this tin. But unfortunately, we haven't learned how to apply our knowledge. And the NEP aims, or it looks at teaching children to use this in real life situation. This is what is meant by real life situations. So there are a bunch of words probably that you are learning, that you are listening to. Experiential learning, holistic development, vocational training, assessments, exploring, evidence-based learning, rote learning, real-world application. I showed you what is real-world application. So let's go back to my slide. Srividya ma'am, can you please put my slide on for me? I'm finding it a little difficult to manage everything together.
Sure, ma'am. Sure, ma'am. Sure.
So can we go to the purple color slide, which I think is right at the bottom? Can you go to the purple color slide, which is right at the bottom? Yes. So in so then again, we looked at in-class participation. Students felt that in India, when they were studying in the classroom, they were not invited or expected to participate in the learning process in school. So they weren't allowed to ask questions. They weren't allowed to give a different point of view. And therefore, when they went to America and they wrote a project, they found it very difficult to actually interact with their teachers. They didn't know what was the kind of language they had to use with their teachers. They didn't know how they had to approach their teachers to fix an appointment, because they didn't know what was the formal participation with teachers. Then presenting learning material. Children were so used to writing essay type questions that they didn't know how to condense all their information and present it within the given time. So they're so used to beating around the bush and talking about all and sundry, rather than putting the main principle that they have learned in as many words. And therefore, they lost a lot of their points. They lost a lot of the assessment marks that they could have got. Assignment deadlines. They didn't know, because they are not used to doing so much of self-study and so much of projects by themselves. They did not know how to manage their time when many assignment deadlines came together simultaneously. And isn't that a very sad thing? They didn't know how to operate within a given time frame. And this is a country where we have so many children who are studying. And to tell that our children don't know the correct method to hand in their homework on time. Then unmotivated. They found that having independent responsibilities to be one of the most difficult things for them to follow because of the simple fact that there was no competition. How sad is that? That we are studying because we want to compete, not because we want to learn and have our own knowledge. Can we move to the next slide, please? Not this. It's a blue slide. Student learning methodology. Okay. So here, the first one. What is inquiry-based learning? Inquiry-based learning basically means that the teacher gives the concept. It is a child who has to learn. It is a child who has to do their research and get back to the teacher with whatever input they have, which means that they are doing and creating something on their own rather than copying from someone else. Whether they are copying from Wikipedia or they are copying from the internet, no. They are doing their own inquiry, they are doing their own research, they come up with an answer which they are going to present in front of the teacher. Engagement for all kinds of learners. So what do you mean by kinds of learners? So there was a man named Howard Gardner who put forth the theory that people learn in 4 different ways. They learn visually using their eyes. So who is a learner who uses their eyes? Maybe it's a child who lives in a place where there is a lot of ambient noise. So they learn to use their eyes to process their information rather than their ears. Who is an auditory learner? So the next is an auditory learner. An auditory learner uses their ears. Maybe he's got his computer in a place which has very low lighting, or where there's so much of backlight, he can't see the screen. So he learns to hear more than he learns to see. Reading and writing. That is how most of us learn. We cannot. At least, if I want to remember something, I have to write it down. If I don't write it down, it's not going to stay in my head. And then there are the kinesthetic learners. The kinesthetic learners are the doers. They need to do something. They need to do what they have studied. And only then they can learn. So when you look at an inquiry-based learning, children will come up with different ways of showing their learning, which suits them the best. So what happens when you do something like this is that a child feels more confident. Child feels more independent, that he has the freedom to display his learning in the manner that helps him the best. Exploring different perspectives. So you got a classroom where you've got 4 or 5 children who have done different kind of research from different people who have put forth different theories on the same thing. So you bring all this learning to class, you debate, you talk about it, and then you come up with a learning which is nothing but independent. It isn't something your teacher has taught you. It is a learning that has come to you yourself. Building initiative and confidence. We've already looked at it. Once children feel confident that they have a voice, that what they say matters, and that nobody is judging them, they're definitely going to feel a lot more confident to learn more and to research more. It promotes creativity. So definitely there'll be some amount of competition here where children will say, okay, he drew a picture, I'm going to put up a skit, or I'm going to write a song. Promotes peer learning. Again, when you look at a classroom where you have children with so many different perspectives, they are going to be in a position to explain to each other what they have learned. They are going to try to convince each other. without unhealthy competition, because the basis of this kind of learning is that we are not seeking to eliminate, we are seeking to include. We are seeking to see how much the child has learned rather than to see how much the child doesn't know. Can we go to the next slide? So here is probably the parents' deepest concern. What are the different teaching methodologies that are being used? And believe me, this is also a teacher's greatest challenge, because just like you parents, we too as students, we have also learnt in rote. So when we work in the classroom, we are literally unlearning what we have learned. And it takes a lot of brainstorming for us to come up with these kind of teaching strategies, designing activities that cater to different kinds of learning abilities. Number two, concentrate more on formative assessment. So let us look at this word assessment. I'm sure many of you have been hearing this word assessment. Assessment merely is testing progress. It is not to test your failure. It is to include more children than to eliminate more children. And in order to do that, teachers have to do it at regular intervals throughout the year. They have to use different methods. They have to involve the child in different kinds of learning. That is why you will probably have one teacher giving 4 or 5 projects throughout the year. Only then can you do an assessment, a formative assessment. In fact, in Mumbai, there are schools where 50% of the assessment is given to formative assessment, 50% marking is given to actually the child's behavior through the academic year. So when you look at formative assessment, a formative assessment is probably the biggest tool that the child has in order to showcase his assessment, because unlike the final exam, it gives him so many opportunities to show how he can do the same thing in different ways. Encourage learners in portfolio creation. When you have a number of assignments and a number of projects and a number of tests that you have done, children need to learn to keep their stuff together, not just the teacher. The children need to learn how to create their portfolio, to be able to showcase their learning and immediately say, this is what I'm good at, this is what I can do, this is where my aptitude is, but this is where my interest is. This the children will not be able to do unless they can prove it by having their own portfolios. Prepare learners to face higher order thinking challenges. So the teacher may give a project as simple as analyze the history of the War of Independence. And then you have probably one child or two children who are so interested and so thirsty to show their knowledge that they will probably go and see how 4 or 5 other countries have, or 2 other countries have gained their independence, and they are going to be able to analyze not just the Indian War of Independence, but they are going to be able to analyze it from the perspective of other children. And here we reach the top order of the Bloom's taxonomy, where children are synthesizing and creating their own learning. They are able to analyze the information and the input they have got in order to create something that is entirely new and completely owned by them. Inspire learners to take responsibility for their work. So it's not the teacher. So there will be a time, luckily, for me also as a teacher, where a parent cannot come to school and tell me, you didn't teach this in the class. Because the students will be so interested in showing how much they have learned, there will be no scope for showing how much more there is for them to learn. And it is the teacher who is going to be trained. And believe me, in all my conversations with your principal, I have really understood that she is trying. Your teachers are definitely trying, because it takes a lot of work. It goes beyond the time that teachers spent in school. I mean, teaching is no longer a job where, they said that, oh, teachers got holidays, teachers got time at home, teachers spend time with their families, they raise stronger children. Believe me, no. By the time we implement this new educational policy and start writing assessment and assessment objectives and learning outcomes and preparing lesson plans, the whole day is gone. And there's probably no other profession where the people that where the accountability of the teacher is more than just to the boss. It is to everybody, the student's parent, in many cases the grandparents. So teachers are definitely not having a joyride with the teaching methodology if you want to reach the objectives of the National Education Policy 2020. Can we go to the next slide, please? Vocational training. So this is again a big, I don't know what to say, is a big elephant in the room, or something that people are all the time talking. What is vocational training? What is vocational training? So let me just give you a small example. Many of us learned SUPW when we were in school. It is called socially useful productive work. I remember that in my school it was typewriting. Until grade 10, it was crochet and embroidery. So what is vocational training? Vocational training is basically, it helps children to increase their skill level. It readies the learner for skill-based aptitude test. So what do you mean by a skill-based aptitude test? So when you talk about a skill-based aptitude test, you are talking about how a child can apply their learning to a real life situation. For example, you break a fuse in your house. A child knows that they have to wear rubber chappals before they touch the board, the electric meter board, because the chappal has a job. The rubber chappals have a job there to do. They know what is the kind of wire they have to use in order to fix that one fuse. This is all imparted in vocational training. So the government has now come up with 33 different categories for vocational training. It does not include only artificial intelligence and coding. They are looking at promoting carpentry, woodwork, handwork, embroidery, traditional medicine, traditional medical medicine practices. These are all some of the things that children can learn, because it emphasizes dignity of labor. So today when we say that somebody is studying to become a mechanic, or somebody is studying to become an electrician, or somebody is studying to become a tailor, definitely we think that that education is a little lower than becoming a doctor or an engineer. But the fact of the matter is that these vocational skills not only promote dignity of labor, it also enables children to do a lot of work by themselves. It streamlines the way in which many of these professions are practiced. It promotes contextual learning. Again, like I said, children will learn how to do so many things for themselves. There are so many countries in the world where in middle school, it is compulsory that children learn baking. They have to learn baking, whether they are boys or girls. And that is actually a wonderful skill to have, because there's such a large market now for, home cook, home baking. So you can learn how to make it into a business. And that is why vocational training, and when you introduce it in the grade 6, 7 and 8, it gives a very good platform for children to know where they have a talent. So a child who's looking to go into a bakery course, or go into hotel management, or go into woodworks or interior design. The children learn all these things. They learn how, whether they have the aptitude, the interest for it. And that's a lovely thing, because in grade 9, 10, 11, and 12, then they can choose this as part of their life goals. Rather than saying, I'm only going to take science, or I'm only going to take history. I've taken history, but I want to become a doctor. I'm no longer qualified to become one. So we need to encourage vocational training. It promotes adaptability. Again, they learn how to give dignity of labor. Enable students to create and manage personal businesses. Again, we are looking at financial independence. It teaches children how to be financially independent. And in our days, in our community, especially for girls, this financial independence is something that is of paramount importance, that girls especially learn to be financially independent. And just imagine, we now have a policy which forces schools to teach children this in school, and says it's not just maths, English, and history and science. It is also teaching girls how, and children, how they can create and manage their own businesses. Can we go to the next slide, please? Now let's look at this academic integrity. So, like I said, these children who went abroad to America, they didn't even know that they were not supposed to be copying blindly from the net. So there are, like, the Tata Institute of Social Studies has got its own software, and anything over 7% that has come off the net is a project that is a fail. It gives you back your project and tells you work on it. So even before the child submits the project, the child has to put it through the software. So where will our children be? The ones who have finished with our help, who have only looked at information and just cut, copy, pasted from the net. So when we look at what is academic integrity, it helps children to build new ideas and create new work by acknowledging and respecting the work of others. Let's accept it. We don't know how to respect other people's work and to respect other people's input. That is because we are so fiercely competitive. So let's look at academic honesty. When we look at academic honesty, it just simply does not mean that you don't copy. It also means that you don't show. That you don't show your work because you want the credit for the hard work that you have done. You don't present before the teacher a work which you have spent very little time on, which your mother has cut, copy, pasted for you. But there is no learning in that kind of work. You are not going to achieve any of the parameters of Bloom's taxonomy if somebody else is going to keep goading you and guiding you. It's okay to make a mistake. Teachers are now equipped to tell you where you need to improve, not to tell you whether you're right or wrong. Trust. Children need to have the trust that their work is good enough to put forward. Their work is good enough to showcase inside a classroom. They need to have the trust that the teacher is going to judge them fairly. And definitely the teacher has now got new parameters for judging. It is not that, oh, this girl always helps me with my books when they are very heavy, so I'm going to give her more marks. That is not the case anymore. But children need to have that trust. Parents need to have that trust that the teacher knows what they are doing. Unfortunately, I find that as a teacher, this is the only profession where parents come and tell me how I have to do my job. If you are a parent driving a car, you certainly don't tell the mechanic where the problem in the clutch is. But you come and tell the teacher that what the teacher is doing in the classroom is wrong. Parents need to have more trust. Fairness. Children, it goes hand in hand with trust. Children need to know that they are going to be tested fairly. And yes, there are new parameters. There are new ways of testing. This is part of the teacher's unlearning process, which, believe me, is happening in your school. Respect. Respect for your own work. Respect for taking credit for your own work. Respect to know that it's okay for somebody else to have a different perspective. Respect to know that somebody has worked as hard as you. Respect for deadlines, to know that you have to turn your work in on time. And respect to know that you have performed to the best of your ability. And academic integrity also includes the responsibility of acknowledging and being accountable for the fact that you have got a set of parameters which you have to fulfill on your own. Only then there's going to be learning. You're not going to learn if somebody else is going to do the work. You're not going to learn if somebody is going to spoon feed you the work. Spoon feeding. I think that is the underlining methodology that has been used so far in schools. The teacher spoon feeds the children chew it and they vomit it out in the board exam. May we go to the next slide, please? Srividya, yes. No, the next slide, please. We finished this. Parents' input. Probably the most important aspect of a child's school life is the parents' input. So, positive view of education. A positive view of education means that children are encouraged at home to study and learn new things by themselves. It does not mean that children have to be right all the time. That is one of the biggest drawbacks of our mentality as parents. We never want our children to be wrong. But in thinking that itself is not right. Because being right, being wrong, and then getting the right perspective or forming your own perspective is probably one of the central milestones that we have in character building. So always give your children a positive view of education. Encourage them to manage their homework process. It does not mean do their homework for them. It does not mean call the teacher up and ask her what do you expect the child to do. It means that you help the child by keeping tabs on the child to stick to deadlines. It means that you're in touch with your child to make sure that your child is happy in school. That knowing what are the problems that your child is facing in school. Encourage reading and curiosity. So when I was looking up this particular point, encourage reading and curiosity, I read an article which was published by the Baruch College in New York. It's a very prestigious college, and it is known for the fact that they take children who are not overachievers. They take children who have a very, very average score and they try to make them the best in whatever they are doing. And that is the speciality of Baruch College. So they put forth a reading report. And you know what was the first line of that report? It said, giving your children the gift of reading is probably the biggest gift that you can give your children in their life. Reading and curiosity go hand in hand. If you want your children to read at home, your children should see you reading at home. It doesn't matter whether they are reading in English, they are reading in Tamil, they are reading in Marathi, or they are reading in French. Reading brings knowledge. The Baruch College found out that in a year, a child has to read 75 books in order to increase their vocabulary by 5 words. Because when you read, you see how many contexts and how many times the same word is used over and over and over again. And you understand how to use that word. It is only then that you have built vocabulary. So today, with all these new media that children are exposed to, reading is not anymore the only way to gain knowledge. There are so many things that we can do. We can look up documentaries. We can look up podcasts. So we can we can gain so much of knowledge in just the subjects that interest us. That is called reading for pleasure. And when you read, normally your curiosity is aroused. How did this man think like this? How did this person behave like this? They are talking about this particular place. How is this? How does this place look? Does a place like this exist? Children will be more curious uh, to explore further. Formal teacher interaction. I'm very sorry to say that we don't have this concept in India at all. We think that we can just barge into the class, we can go to the teacher at any time, and we can ask her whatever we want. But that's not true, because your children are looking at you. You need to fix an appointment with your teacher. You need to think about what is the kind of language you can use with your teacher. What are the kinds of questions you can use with your teacher? One query that I find always coming from parents is, how can you give this question in the exam? You didn't give this question in the class. So where is the child going to apply their knowledge? Where are they going to analyze if I'm only going to give the same question which I've given in the notebook? And that is how you encourage active learning. If you want to encourage active learning, you have to allow the child to be wrong. You have to allow the child to explore. You have to allow the child to express themselves. So when children are young and they are they are asked to do an assignment, or they are asked to do a report, we find parents have printed down, they have cut, so children have perfectly shaped pictures that have been taped perfectly onto their book. And the project comes to the school looking like it's ready to be in a museum. But the project is coming from the hands of a child who doesn't have the motor skill to even pull the scotch tape. But it's okay if the child has pasted it crooked. It's okay if the child forgot and cut off the head of the main character in the picture. It's all right. The child learns. The teacher will say, look, you're supposed to put Mr. Paul's photo here, but you cut his head off. So next time the child will remember, oh, I should not cut off this person's head. I have to cut above his head. So this is the input that we need to give as parents to our children if we want them to excel in inquiry-based learning. If we want our children to be really global and succeed wherever they go, irrespective of whether it is a different cultural part of India, a different language in India, or somewhere in Germany where we can't understand a single word, we want to create truly international citizens, these are some of the inputs that we need to give our children at home from a very young age. And it begins with allowing them to be wrong. So I'm sure that many of you are now a lot more inquisitive, a lot more curious. And I'm sure that there are parents who have questions that perspectives that Ms. Gladstone and I, or even Principal Ma'am, has not even thought of. But this is a good time for you to ask, so that together we can learn and we can become better teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. If any parents have any queries on this session, you can ask to our guest of honor. If parents have any doubts about NEP, which both of them have pointed out, please be free enough to ask or type out the question in the chat box. Dear parents, do you have any question? Dear parents, are you all thorough with the concept?
Good morning, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, all. This is Artika and Amitesh from Raja School, 4th standard and 5th standard.
Okay, ma'am.
Excuse me, Amitesh, ma'am. Can you switch on your camera and speak, please?
Actually, I am not in a position to switch on my camera. Sorry. Okay, okay.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. I'm sorry. Okay. Ma'am, actually, I don't have any query. I just wanted to say, as Sunita Gladstone ma'am told, the parents are taking, what to say? Yeah, we parents actually used to ask so many questions to the teachers. It is actually right only. We are always asking questions whatever we think, but it is wrong actually. I know, because in our time, we will not allow to ask questions. Our parents are not allowed to unnecessary questions to the teachers. Whenever they wanted to ask about our kids, they have to fix the appointment and then only they can take. But now, because of the social network, we are immediately asking so many questions to the teacher. You educate us very nicely actually. It was not hurting, it was educating us. In this online session, we are always asking questions to the teachers. Now we can also understand that teachers are ready to encourage the students. In our school also, teachers are always motivating students. They are giving so many experiments and so many extra. It's not like extracurricular activities. It is coming under curriculum only. So many competitions they are giving to improve the kids. They are doing it. But sometimes we are also involving kids activities. That we will stop it actually. That we have to stop it. Thank you so much for the session. Thank you, school. Thank you, everyone.
So just a moment, I just like to reiterate one thing. So when I say that, parents ask teachers a lot of questions, I don't mean that, we have to stop asking questions, but it's a very ingrained thing that when you trust the teacher's process, when you trust that the teacher has the best of the child in mind, and that the teacher knows what she is doing, the kind of questions that you ask will automatically change. And that is where the change needs to be, because we are not going to learn if we don't question. But when that question comes with the trust that the response you're going to get is going to work for you, the kind of question that you ask also will change. And that is the change that we are looking at. The teachers are trusted more.
Thank you, Mrs. Sunita, for that wonderful.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Any other parents, if you have any doubts on NEP, about the structure and the implementation, you can be feeling free enough to ask the question to the resource person. Jen, we have sir.
Yeah, hi, good morning.
Okay, good
Tony
morning,
here.
sir. Yes.
Yeah, Tony here, father of Fiona Tony. Well, I'm in support of the policy. I mean, I've done my schooling same like everybody else, but then during the college and thereon, I've been following the same structure, which we were discussing. So my question is, it's okay to look on the papers and everything, but how are we going to implement this? What's the roadmap? Right now that how are we going to how is the transition going to be from here on?
So I'm sorry, Principal, I'm speaking on your behalf right now. So, Tony, when Mrs. Malarvili asked me to address this gathering, this was the first question that I asked her. That, in a town like Nagarkoil, I have taught in Nagarkoil too. I started my career in Nagarkoil, and I know what are the kind of questions that parents can come and ask you. I'm sure that there is at least 2 or 3 parents here who are my students. So, what are you doing? We are going to talk about NEP, and then when parents come and ask me, what is the school doing? I don't want to look dumb. So, how is the roadmap going to be? Definitely there has been a lull in the way we change the way we teach, because again we have had to have a paradigm shift in the very basics of how we teach by going online during COVID. And then of course this the fact that there is no way to do an internal check on the quality of work that has been submitted by the student. So when your road map actually will begin in earnestness when the children come back to school. And there are, from what I have heard and seen from Srividya, Banu, Malarviri, has been that they are accumulating and recording so many different ways in which teaching and assessment can be done in the classroom. So, for example, in an English class, this is again a suggestion. So, when I take when I take a French class, I'm a French teacher, I don't do vocabulary. I pick out all the new vocabulary there is inside. I insist that my children have a dictionary in the class, and I give them a simple crossword. So, the question to the crossword is a word in English. They have to look it up in the dictionary and fill it in the crossword. After that, that is followed by a word search. So there are different degrees in which you reinforce learning, different activities which cater to the different kinds of learning. You may put on a song, you may put on a new game application. So the government is actually building a set of games that can be used inside the classroom to teach vocabulary. So there is a road work that is going to come, and at this point, what parents need is trust. I think that is going to be the central beam on which we are going to place the NEP. The trust that teachers are doing their best. So there is going to be a lot of change when children come back to school, because right now just grappling with technological difficulties, trying to get the message across to the children, and also in the back of the mind, you're always at rest because you're not in a formal setting, you're inside your home. So those are all major setbacks for teachers who are, who have to operate from home. So that is why often, sometimes if you go to certain meetings, the boss will be speaking and in the background you can hear his pressure cooker whistle. So those are major challenges that we face as teachers. So when children come back to school, it's definitely going to be an entirely more interesting and a more fun-filled experience for children to go to school.
Thank you, Mrs. Sunita.
Uh,
And
yeah, sorry. Well, thank you for the response. But I mean, best wishes for the smoother transmission. I would like to see it that way. I mean, I was just want to point out when you asked for that, the example of that. I mean, the cake, right? How much volume to fill it up? I'm no expert. I've never seen or see. I mean, I've only seen my cook making a cake. So I was wondering how much to fill in. Like will it be half the volume or like quarter of the volume or that way? I was not getting it right. But I was, I didn't see any other response from anybody, any of the mothers who are actually making, right? So it's what I want to point out here is people don't accept changes so readily, right? I mean, this is not something that every of the moms and parents are engaging on such webinars and so and so, right? So it's a change. It's something not a usual thing for them. So otherwise, I'm pretty sure there would be much of such answers, right? So that is the point. People don't want to change that easily. So we need to plan this transition in a smoother way with a clear-cut roadmap. And I would like to see it, succeed in a big way. Thank you.
Definitely. Sir, just I would take a 2 minute to answer to the question, just to build in a trust with the team that, in Rajas International School, what we are doing. We have already started the games, sir. Because the plan itself, the very pedagogical plan that we do and the trainings that the teachers attend and the very attitude of the school has changed. This session itself will make you understand that we were waiting for 300 participants from the parent side, but hardly, if you check, 50 parents are right now here. So the effort that from our side that we give to transform the children, what ratio is being balanced with the parent is a question. The amount of effort from the school and the principal and the team, the teachers, we give, where it lies with the parent is a big question. And before a week, we started to, give information to the parents. Please come. This is what you have to. And yesterday, it is all the online platform that is disturbing the approach. Once the children come inside, they are in our hands. And definitely what we will implement with them is going to give a better transformation. And I need all my parents to trust the methodology, the plan that we are planning to, actually we are waiting for your children. So November 1st, we are opening, and I need the parent support. So let the culture of change in our thoughts. Let our thought process change, not in memorizing way of learning, but allowing the children their time to think, allowing the children to think, not answering what the child should do. Sometimes in the online classes, we find parents sitting behind, and when the teacher puts forth a question, it is not the child who answers, but behind the parents sit and give the answer. The child should need a time to think, isn't it? Even that the parents don't give. We know as teachers, we know that the child needs a time to think. Child needs a time to come out with his own answer. But we do not understand that, and we tend to copy the answer, and we prepare. I tell the parents, we prepare all the teachers. No matter. We do everything in the classwork. The teacher gives the question and the answer. The parents cut, copy, paste, prepare the project for the sake of the child, but it is not going to do any good. So the traditional method of learning should change. For that I need the parent support. And this today, the platform that we had used to make the parents think, this itself is a beginning. Actually, I think I'm able to answer to the question what sir has put forth. So it's all the we are waiting for the children to come inside the school, and with the guidance of the framework and the plan that we have already done, definitely it's going to come into life. Our expectation, you will see, no parents' expectation, you will see the evidence with the children when they come home to talk to you. I could see Thanamal Indu, Miss Thanamal Indu, you have raised your hand, so you can
Yes.
come out with your question.
Yes.
5 more minutes the parents will
Yes.
have. So you can type your questions in the chat box or come out with your questions. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, all of you. And first of all, thanks for arranging such a wonderful session. So I have one question, ma'am. How far this NEP is going to help a secondary school student, say 8th or 9th, because they are already being trained in the traditional way so far till 7th or 8th. So how far this change is going to affect student of secondary school?
Can I expect Ms. Sumitra Gladson to answer for this question?
So yeah, this is a very valid question actually, because when you say that you're going to overthrow the system and you're going to bring in a new system, it's definitely going to you're definitely going to wonder how my child is going to perform. My child is in grade 12. My child is in grade 10. What is my child going to do? So usually, what governments do, I think Ms. Gladstone also will agree that usually what governments do is they give you a time frame within which you are expected to implement it. So this change is not going to be overnight. They are not going to say that tomorrow, that in April, children, if they want to get into university, they have to show us what is the work that they have done from grade 8, because it is impossible. Children are not going to have that work with them. So they will phase it out in a very gradual manner, because at the end of the day, anybody who makes a national education policy, the person who is running the country, the person who wants to say that he has employment rates on high, the parent who is sending the child to school, the teacher who wants to know that she is a good teacher, has in heart the progress of the child. Ms. Gladstone, is there anything you can say about it? So it is going to be very phased out. Tanya?
I would also like to highlight that what some organizations in the country are already doing is that they have developed this one particular methodology of teaching called teaching at the right level. Which is being implemented very across the globe actually, and very well by this particular organization called Pratham, which runs the ASAR study. And what teaching at the right level basically does is that it helps bridge the gap that children have had in their learning from previous standards. So say your child is in 5th standard, and they're reading or doing math only at the 2nd standard level. Then what the teaching at the right level methodology does is it steps in and it helps bridge that learning gap between the 2nd and the 5th standard. So I would think that the government would I think the government has already started implementing teaching at the right level in a lot of government schools, and they would encourage this methodology to be adopted in private schools also, because that would really help lay the foundational skills that children would need, that they might not have had because of the previous education system, so that they can then, going forward in 9th, 10th, 11th, etc., they'll be able to build on those skills and adapt better to the changes that the NEP will bring about to the education system.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I have one more question. Does this policy support more of online or offline?
So the NEP itself, the policy document, has actually emphasized that digital learning, online learning will be given a lot of weightage. It has said that digital literacy, how you use the internet, how you use a computer itself, just the hard skills, right, will be given weightage. But again, I think that will, like everyone else has echoed, it will be very gradual. It's not going to be sudden. And I think for the foreseeable future, at least for the next 2 to 3 years, there will be uh, physical learning, if not a blended learning of physical in school as well as online learning. So you don't have to worry that school will entirely be online and nothing else will be happening. And the thing is that the NEP also makes provisions for other kinds of learning, like I said, art learning, physical learning, vocational training. They encourage internships. So the kind of learning, the modes of learning, that is to say, will be very varied and again very gradual in the way that they're implemented. It's not just suddenly going to start being implemented like that. Maybe this year they've changed how boards are being conducted in 10th standard this year. That was a recommendation that was given in the NEP, that they have one exam which is MCQs, 40 marks, and then another exam later on which is answer based, which is what they're doing this year. So maybe next year they will say, okay, 6 to 8 standard children will start having internships, and bagless days. They call bagless days. Then the next year they'll say, okay, from this year onwards we're going to maybe change how subjects are selected, etc., etc. So it's going to be very gradual. You don't have to worry about that.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I have just one more question. Will this change go in a mutual agreement with the universities? Like when they finish schooling, will there be a change in the entrance exam patterns, or right
Yes.
how they take them to the colleges?
Yes.
Will there be a
There's actually been an overhaul of the entire education system. So there's from 1 to 3 year olds, there's something called early childhood care. That's been implemented. Then you have the school education. Then there are a lot of changes that are coming to higher education. The format for how entrance exams are taking place are completely changing. The courses that children are allowed to take are changing. The number of years, it is 3 years now, it's being changed to 4 years. Then there's something called multiple entry and exit points. So children can leave in 10th standard, come back to 10th standard. They can leave in 12th standard, do something else, come back to college. They can leave in between college, they can finish just 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, leave, go do something else, come back to studying. So there's a lot of change taking place throughout the system. It's a very symbiotic relationship where one that at each stage of the education system there has been some change, and that has been aided by change before and after that stage. And I think the end goal is to make sure that you have a critically thinking population. You have a population that can engage well with the world around them, and that's been very cohesively dealt with by the policy.
thank you,
So,
ma'am. Thank you so much.
So I'd just like to address Ms. Mayureka's question. So her question was, will it not make it difficult for the students to study as well as do the activity? So here is where you have the basic change. There, it will not affect the way the time that they spend on studying, because they are going to waste it, within inverted commas, waste their time doing activity, because doing the activity is the studying. They study by doing the activity. They are going to be tested on the activity they have done, not on the content in their textbook. So they are actually going to reduce the scope of the syllabus in many subjects, and they are going to have more condensed quantity of concepts to study, so that children can build on that through self study. So your child's activity is the child's study. So there's no thing like saying I couldn't study for my physics test because I was busy doing my chemistry activity. Because a child is going to be able to study, that physics test is probably a project that he has already done, which he will be presenting in the class the following day, which he is going to be marked on.
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. I hope Radhika Vijayan, Mrs. Radhika Vijayan.
Yes,
from
yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am. The another question. Ma'am, you're talking about the language-oriented studies. Can you please explain this again, Tanya, ma'am? I mean,
So
you said the
yes,
local
yes.
language. Yes, yeah.
Yes. This is a change that's going to be implemented under the NEP, where basically it's called the three language system, where students will have to learn two Indian languages and then a third language of their choice. And it's going to be implemented in both government and private schools. It's not, as far as I know, it's not a voluntary change that's going to come about. And how it's going to work is that till fifth standard, children are going to be taught exclusively in their mother tongue. So in Nagarkoi, your children will speak in, will be taught in Tamil. And this is done because children are not able to learn when they're taught in a language that they don't speak all the time, such as English, right? Learning, there are countless number of studies. You can just Google it, but there's countless number of studies that have been done that have indicated that children learn, grasp, and are able to apply concepts much better if they learn it in their mother tongue or the regional language rather than in English. Because one is, you don't speak in English all the time. You're not exposed to the language everywhere you go. Maybe you watch it on TV, but your parents don't speak it at home that much, or you go to the playground to play, everybody else doesn't speak in English. So it's much easier for children to learn in their mother tongue. So that's the medium of instruction till fifth standard, and in some instances even up until the eighth standard. And then the second language is any Indian language. So it can be Sanskrit, it can be Hindi, it can be any other Indian language. And then the third language is English, or an international language like French, German, etc.
Okay, ma'am.
So just to elaborate on what Ms. Gladstone had said, in Goa, they introduced the system more than 15 years ago. It was not voluntary. If you were studying in a if you were studying in a school, a Goan government school, it was compulsory that till grade 5, the medium of instruction is Konkani. They don't teach anything else. And the other thing is, in Goa, there are only 2 ICSE schools and 1 CBSE school. So that they don't have enough seats for all the children in Goa. So most of the children study in the Goa board. And till grade 5, they learn in Konkani. And after that, they move on to grade, from 6 onwards, they move on to English as the medium of instruction. So when you look at school, when you look at families where they may not be able to, encourage their children to study in English, when children have a better grasp of those basic concepts in their mother tongue, even if they don't go on to an English school, they are still encouraged to continue with their education. And that is something that is very, very needed for our country right now. The children drop from school not because they don't have the resources or because they don't have the interest. They drop from school because they are not able to keep up. And when you teach in your mother tongue, it increases definitely the number of children who are motivated to continue with their education.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes,
Tony?
I think sir is having another doubt.
Yeah, sorry. I just need one clarification on this point we were discussing, right? So when we talk of the, I've seen in many countries, like you can say Japan, China, or anywhere, right? They're taking it entirely. The medium of education is entirely on their mother language, and this increases their productivity in a much way because they are able to think fast, comprehend fast, and apply faster. Okay, so that's one thing lacking in our system. I understand that. However, when you say that till 5th standard, right, we are going to be following the system, and then from there on, we are going to switch over to the English medium. Till 5th, let's say a particular subject like science, for example, all right, it involves many terms, right? So when you're going to switch over, then there's going to be a, it's not so simple. I mean, there are many terms, technology, everything. So I just want a clarification. Will only the medium of teaching for the sake of better explanation or so will be only in mother tongue, and the rest all the terms, the books, everything will be in English only, or will the entire thing change to the native language?
How I have understood the NEP and have read it being interpreted is that till 5th standard you're taught all your subjects in your mother tongue, right? And alongside that, you also are taught English and let's say another Indian language, right? So it's not that you're taught only in Tamil and then there's a sudden switch to English. You are being taught English also alongside. And then the gradual shift is made to a complete, medium of instruction in English. And also, they have mentioned in the NEP that, hold on, I'll give you the exact quote. They've said that children will preferably till grade 8 and beyond. So from 5th to 8th, let's assume that that's a buffer period, right? And that will be the period during which the language transition will be made. So maybe they will start with a couple of subjects in English and a mix of English and Tamil, and then in 8th standard gradually it will turn completely to English. So it will be a very gradual adoption of English. It won't be that children are suddenly being taught entirely in English.
Okay, thank you for that. If possible, if there is a prospect or anything which is giving a clear-cut roadmap how it's going to be, how the transition is going to be from the starting to the children until the children passes out, it will be much helpful when the parents can go in detail about that, and thereafter they can come up with it will be much better rather than we just talk it out right here. And what I suggest is better to give time for the parents to go through the entire roadmap, and thereafter there will be much more questions and we can discuss in a much better way. That's my suggestion. Thank you for that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So,
Surely.
excuse me, I feel the medium of instruction would be either English. Now it becomes mandatory for English medium schools to instruct the children in English. So it can be in Tamil also. If the child is not able to enhance the child's understanding, the schools can take up the regional language to explain things. It's not that the exact terms will be, they will learn the terms in the regional language. That's what I understood. But still, the parents, for the parents' information, you can download the NEP 2020. It is available in the net, and you can go through. Out of interest, if you would like to, you can go through. This is all the initiation that we have taken. I would guarantee that no other school in our town would have taken this initiation to motivate the parents to have an understanding about what the education policy is. So it's just a first step, isn't it? Long way to go. So minimum of 2 to 5 years it should take for us really to find out the fruit from it. Actually, this NEP is going to be very fruitful, because the ultimate aim of education is making the children to think and be individual. They have to create something new ideas, innovation should come inside. So these steps to pave a way to the child, to the children, to design something new. So these are the steps. Because of some study, Tanya was talking earlier, she was giving all the study, the report, where we actually stand in the international level. We are nowhere. No, we always cut, copy, paste, mug up, vomit. So we are nowhere. The students, they do not know to think. I should not tell that way. We institutions have failed in bring out a different methodology that will give a space for the child to think and put forth their idea. No, when child comes inside, we only teach A for apple. We never change the question to ask them what are the words that starts with letter A, so that different answers will come in. And the board exam and the assessment pattern is so that all the children will answer the same for a particular question. This should change. That is the main objective actually. A child who is learning science should also integrate that concept with maths, should also integrate that particular concept with English. You know, a case study question which comes in maths, it involves a child's comprehension skill. If the child is not good in comprehension to understand and relate it with the concept and answer to the question, he is not going to be good in maths. If a child who is being taught with Newton's law, if he doesn't know to solve the problem, to analyze when he's standing on top of the building and dropping a feather, how long it takes to reach the ground, if he's not able to solve the problem with the formula that he has learned and the concept he has learned, then it becomes a waste. It becomes learning. Mayureka's mother asked about, won't the study time be wasted? No, this is the study actually. The child should take up some concept and analyze it, analyze with the data, know to collect the data and find out a result, find out a draft result on the data, that on the experiment that he has done, maybe in his neighborhood, in his family. Maybe he opens the third standard child opens the fridge and finds out whether the house, the family members are eating healthy diet by giving a chart. Everything wants evidence. The child should be taught to preserve the evidences of what he has learned. Portfolio, we call it as portfolio. But few parents think that it is a waste of time working on portfolio. It is because the child doesn't know the importance of that. No, it is because the parents didn't understand. They think that activity is not equal to study. It is because the child himself is not aware that he shouldn't cut, copy, paste. He has to really analyze the result that come out. It is out of his own research. So these things, this change of thought process will happen in a particular phase of time. So let us, start rather than, taking it behind. Let us start. Let us step. Better to be late than never. Okay.
So I think basically trying to implement this NEP is going to help children so much in their another word that parents are hearing all the time, holistic development. What is holistic development? Today, can we really say that our education has given us a different perspective? It hasn't. Because it's only one perspective that is thrust down our throats. But when you have active learning strategies, you learn to question other perspectives. So when the Cambridge training class was going on, the first thing the instructor said, children can state that tortoises can fly, but they better be ready to prove it. So that is what, the essence of real education is, to create that perspective. And it, of course, to weed out that very, very unhealthy competition that we have today in our lives.
Thank you, Mrs. Sunita, for that explanation. And I have sent a Google Forms link about the feedback form in your parents. Please fill up the form and send it back. Thank you for patiently listening to the speech of Ms. Tanya and Mrs. Sunita. It was a wonderful and a lengthy session, which was provoking the thought of many parents and even the teachers. So I hand upon the platform to Mrs. Nishana to give the thanking session, to do the vote of thanks. Please, Nishana.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. I, Nishana, on behalf of the Rajas International School and the entire fraternity of the institution, first of all, extend my most sincere thanks to the Almighty for making today's event a resounding success. The best and beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. Thank you is one such prayer among them. I consider it a great privilege to propose a vote of thanks to all the dignitaries who have witnessed it as a memorable and successful event. Today, my words are not enough to express the gratitude on behalf of our Rajas International School. I would like to thank our chief guest, Mrs. Sunita Gladson, who spared time from her busiest schedule to grace this webinar and the day as a real eye-opener session on NEP 2020. Thank you, ma'am. Next, my sincere thanks to Miss Tanya Jessica Gladson, who really inspired us with her ample of wisdom on NEP 2020. Today, we had an opportunity to hear a clear structure and understanding about NEP 2020 that will surely be going to encourage us in our future steps. Thank you so much, ma'am. A special mention to our respected and beloved principal, ma'am, Mrs. Malarville, for being the catalyst that stimulated us to do our best and standing as a pillar of strength. Thank you so much, ma'am. I also extend my deep sense of appreciation and thanks to all the officials in our administration to make this webinar a successful one. Next, my heartfelt thanks to our beloved parents who had spent their valuable time with us to make the day a triumphant one. Thank you so much, my dear parents. Next, I would like to thank all our faculties, staffs, and coordinators for their 100% effort to make this webinar a well-rounded accomplishment. Really, I feel proud and thankful to all the students and the parents for their presence. Last but not the least, I thank all the students for showing their interest and their immense presence in this program. Thank you, Onanda. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. That was a wonderful session, as Nishana said. we are expecting more, like to implement how the implementation happens, and we will be expecting more sessions with you both, if any clarities are being needed. So that was a very nice spending time with you. We asked for only 1 hour, but the session was a very lengthy one, as we didn't expect this. But anyway, many parents were patient to listen all these things, and we were happy, Ms. Tanya and Mrs. Sunita, for spending the valuable and precious time with us to fill up with knowledge of NEP. We are also proud to be having the first session, as comparing to all the schools in Nagercoil. We are the forerunner of having the session with the parents, and so happy for that. Thank you, ma'am, both of you. Thank you. Parents, or those who are there, can fill up the feedback form, and you can slowly leave the meet. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.